Hello, Facebook friends, YouTube subscribers. How are y'all doing today? This is my newest movie review, and it is for Detroit, directed by Catherine Bigelow. You might recognize Catherine Bigelow. She is the first woman to, not the first woman nominated, but the first woman to win Best Director. And she won for Hurt Locker, and she also was nominated for Zero Dark 30. She directs a film about the Detroit riots of 1967 and the events that happened at the St. Algers Hotel in Detroit in 1967. It all starts with folks getting arrested. Some black folks being arrested by some white cops, and the race tensions were pretty high. You can tell that there's a lot of things going on in the film. So they start protesting and getting upset, and the cops have to retaliate. This is back in the '60s when they would bring out the full force. I mean, against protesters in any event, like the Chicago political convention, where the Mayor Daley, sent the cops after the protesters at the convention and was beating and clubbing them. They were in this kind of atmosphere again in Detroit, where the cops you had some rogue cops that took things out of hand, and it's based historically. A lot of the film comes in the style of a documentary. It was an intense film. I was sitting there thinking, "Oh my word, I didn't know this stuff went down," because I remember reading about the Harlem riots, some of the some of the events that happened in Chicago in '68, and knew there was a lot of police brutality back then, and some of the police action that were taken against protesters. Um, Things were different back then, and hopefully America's gotten better about that sort of thing. I don't know, but it shows just the intensity of that whole situation, and it kind of boils over when these cops decide, somebody at the motel decides to start shooting their little toy gun, and also all hell breaks loose. The cops swarm the hotel, and you got a couple of rogue cops that decide they're going to have their own sense of doing things. And it tells the tale of what happened at St. Algers Hotel, based, and this is based on different witnesses and what happened. And it's intense, it's brutal, it is. Yeah, I mean, I can see both sides of the picture on this. People protesting, throwing things at cops when they really shouldn't have been, and then the cops just overstepping bounds, not keeping it in check. you know, Back then things were different, and I don't understand it as being a kid from the '90s. I don't understand what happened back then. You had a lot of things, and I'm not making this a political thing, and I apologize if it comes off that way, but it shows the intensity of that period. Catherine Bigelow did it perfectly. John Boyega is a security guard trying to um, help protect one of the grocery stores down there. Another guy, and Anthony Mackie's part of a band that is just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And they're two of the guys that end up in the motel and are having to deal with these cops. These cops are brutal, they're intense. One of the cops is played by the guy, the son from We're the Millers. He's a good actor. He's becoming a really good actor, but I couldn't have been able to stomach be an actor and be able to do what he did. I mean, I was just thinking, oh, I couldn't say that to those two people. I couldn't beat somebody. I mean, he really took his role seriously. I do believe you'll see Best Director for Catherine Bigelow. Best Picture. It was shot beautifully. It was almost a documentary style. Another reviewer had come mention that, and I kind of was looking at that when I was watching. I was like, yeah, I can see where he comes across. That being documentary. Video footage from a lot of the news reports. Governor George Romney, who was the governor of Michigan at the time, a news thing with him. It's intense, and I don't understand what went on in that period. I wasn't born yet, but from what I could tell, it was a bad era. People, it was just not good for anybody. And it really shows that in this film what folks went through. The intensity of the cops, the intensity of the rioters and the protesters. And you're kind of siding with both people because you can see both aspects. People trying to keep the peace, people trying to stay out of this, and then getting caught in the middle of it. And it's an intense film. I think you'll see some award nominations given to John Boyega, Anthony Mackie, Best Director nom. I think Christopher Nolan for Dunkirk, and Catherine Bigelow for Detroit. It was intense. I thought it was a good film. I enjoyed it, but it's not. You're sitting there. It's like I said. Don't you'll feel a little bothered when you leave because you're just thinking. It goes through your mind. How did this all get to happen like this in real life? Um, it's another 5-star film. It was, like I said, it was a great film. Intense, like Dunkirk. Probably more of an intense. It is rated R. It is rated R for several reasons. It is brutally violent. It is some of the scenes, some of the slurs that these cops use on the African American community. It was making me cringe, and I couldn't believe that it was like that in that area, and I know it was because things were different back then. But it's sad that we had that era in America, and seems to be we're getting that way. Not to be political, we're seeing that happen again in America, and I hate to see that. But if you want to see history, and you want to see a film with intensity, and you want to see a good picture, definitely see Detroit. It's a good film. I think everybody should see it. I think everybody should see what happens when you let racism take over. And I would definitely recommend Detroit. It was a beautifully shot film, intense. I can't say that enough. Intense. R rated for good reason. Do not take your children to this. Your kids are going to be thinking, oh my word. I mean, it's, like I said, it is brutal on some scenes. Um, but it's one of those films that you see and you're just like, oh my word, what did I just see here? Type of film. But it was excellent in every aspect because she brought in the emotion. Um, that and Dunkirk were two of the best films this summer. I give Detroit 5 stars. Definitely check it out.